I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle on a very busy Tuesday, just 7 weeks before the midterms, if you can believe it. The last gasps, that's the focus of tonight's angle. Look, in all seriousness, folks, that's how Biden speaks, right? 49 days to go before the midterms, and the Democrats, they have so much to be proud of.
8.3% is the year-over-year number, coming in hotter than expected and hotter than a lot of economists and a lot of people on this panel thought it was going to come in.
Since middle of last year, we've seen that inflation is going up faster than wages. That means that if you adjust paychecks for inflation, they're actually shrinking.
Robberies and property crimes are rising. Robbery has jumped 19%.
This crime is on the rise across the nation.
Heck of a job, Joey. But at least the Democrats always had the pandemic to help them hold on to power, right? Well, until Biden messed that up on 60 Minutes, that is.
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape.
The Branch Covidians at the White House, they're beside themselves. Because if the pandemic is truly over, so is the president's federal health emergency. And that brings us to another Biden walkback.
The White House now clarifying President Biden's response.
The White House rushed to clarify.
The White House has to put out a statement after the press conference.
We are not where we need to be if we're going to be able to, quote, live with the virus.
Is the pandemic over?
What the president's reflecting is the fact that we've made tremendous progress against COVID-19. But he also said, we have more work to do on COVID. We need people to take that vaccine.
Well, that man is the definition of smarmy. Now, at this point, trying to sell this vaccine and the new booster, it's like trying to sell an 8-track tape player, okay? Nobody wants one anymore. But that's not going to stop the Washington Post from selling the COVID cult mantra and gently correcting Biden, writing the pandemic has shifted and normalcy has returned in many ways, but it is not over. Mr. Biden has not ended the official pandemic emergency. When the official emergency ends, some 15 million will lose Medicaid coverage. The reason for the student loan repayment pause will end. All this policy transition must not be done carelessly or hastily. 2.5 years counts as hasty for the Washington Post. I got it. Now, they don't ever want it to end because more emergencies equal more government dependency, more government spending, without ever having to go through Congress, by the way, which is, the big defenders of democracy. Anyone with a brain knows that Biden's COVID crutch, whether they know it or not, it's gone. And now all Democrats have to offer is a lousy economy, an open border, and rampant crime. And regular Americans who actually pay their own bills, they're beginning to place the blame where it properly lies, with the Democrats. The Senate and gubernatorial races are starting to lean closer to the Republicans. In Georgia, Herschel Walker is now up over Raphael Warnock. And new polling is bad news for the left-wing's supposed savior in Georgia, Stacey Abrams. And Ron Johnson will beat the radical pro-criminal candidate Mandela Barnes. What a nightmare he is in Wisconsin. A new Emerson poll has Johnson now up by 4 points. Mandela is just a hardcore leftist.
Mandela Barnes thinks the founding of America was awful and our national parks are racist. He supported a 20% increase in the gas tax and 70% top income tax rate. And Mandela Barnes opposes school choice, but wants to teach your children critical race theory.
Yikes. And in Nevada, a state once thought to be solidly blue, well, it's turning out not to be. Catherine Cortez Masto, a liberal who never cared about the border and now pretends to, is getting a serious challenge from Republican Adam Laxalt. Now, I'd bet a sizable sum of money on the fact that the Democrats, their own internal polling, is telling them that they're on track to lose the Senate. It isn't even October yet, though, so don't get all excited, because they're not going to go down without a pathetic last-ditch effort to turn the tide. Now, with the Queen buried and the bad economic news piling up, of course, like clockwork, the January 6th committee reconvenes next week. So expect more of the same old video of the Capitol window being smashed and people scaling the walls. You'll have a lot more of those furrowed brow expressions from the committee members. Aren't you tired of those? Now, if only Democrats cared as much about the pain suffered by their own constituents, devastated by soaring bills, violent crime, and fentanyl pouring across the open border. Millions of non-citizens have invaded our country under Biden, but Democrats aren't interested in analyzing that video in the next 49 days. No way. So desperation, it makes people do crazy things. Expect Democrat messaging over the next several weeks to get nuttier and more extreme, and their tactics to be even more anti-democratic. They're going to work with their social media proxies to censor anyone who opposes them.
And that through line of hate never fully goes away. It only hides. And when given any oxygen, it comes out from under the rocks. In the last few years, it's been given much too much oxygen in our politics, in our media, and on the internet.
And of course, they're going to cry racism at every turn.
Have determined that domestic terrorism, rooted in white supremacy, is the greatest terrorist threat. My dad would say, if your silence is complicity.
They're going to villainize parents and Christians as dumb bigots.
People on the local level at affected school board meetings, they won't forget the MAGA Republicans descending on their school board meetings after January 6th. It was a coordinated attack happening across the country.
They're going to use the DOJ, the FBI, and every other branch of government to harass effective political adversaries.
That search was of premises located in Florida belonging to the former president. I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter.
And when that doesn't work, they're going to try to shut down their opposition by setting their activist dogs loose on conservative donors. Now, you may ask, how's this going to happen? Well, if they had their druthers, they would force super PACs or issue advocacy groups to divulge their donor lists. Biden's motives are so altruistic, though.
I believe sunlight is the best disinfectant. There's much too much money that flows in the shadows to influence our elections. It's called dark money.
It's called dark money. Oh, now that's a problem? He didn't think it was a problem in 2020 when $174 million flooded the election from his anonymous supporters, or 6 times the $25 million Trump got. Biden couldn't even pretend to hide his ultimate objective today.
And here's just one recent example. A conservative activist who spent, as was his right, decades working to put enough conservative justice on the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade, now has access to $1.6 billion in dark money to do more damage and from our perspective, and restrict more freedoms. As far as we know.
Did he fall asleep there? I swear he was sleep talking. Now, what Biden's nut jobs want is conservative donors to live under the same protest hell as Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh still do. But the good news is, Biden's words today are just hot air signifying nothing. This bill would be dead in the water. And speaking of a waste of time, Kamala had nothing better to do today than repeat a tired old lie about states like Georgia and, of course, push for a federal takeover of state election laws.
Laws that, not far from here, ban drop boxes and restrict early voting. Laws that states are passing making it illegal to give folks who stand in line to vote food and water. Undemocratic laws. Un-American laws.
She's lying. She's a liar. The truth is, Georgia's Election Integrity Act, demagogue by charlatans like Kamala, as an act of some type of voter suppression, that law actually increased voting by the most significant margin ever during this last primary season in Georgia. And the idiots there lost the state the Major League Baseball, all-star game for nothing. Thanks. So the closer we get to Election Day, the more desperate they're going to become. Expect more anti-American propaganda, more interviews with Liz Cheney and profiles of her. Expect the regime media to hide what's happening to your streets, to your schools, to your standard of living. Expect more leaks, more investigations, lawsuits, and threats to punish any Republicans who speak up and speak out. But don't be distracted. You're too smart for that. Stay focused on the real issue. What's best for your kids and your country? We have a great opportunity this fall, so let's take advantage of it. And that's The Angle.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.